Lately, I've been finding a lot of happiness on the internet in the work reform movement. Like, you'll see a video of a small business owner on the news and they're like, I have to work at my bakery like it's a job and nobody wants to work anymore. And then you go to their website and they pay $2 an hour plus tips, but they work in like downtown where parking is $11 an hour. And it's like, maybe nobody wants to work for you because you don't want to pay your workers. Like, when you pay a minimum wage, you're literally saying, I am paying the amount that the government legally requires. And I would pay less if I could. It's fun to see like the emails where recruiters are like, hey, we'd love you to fly out and do this interview. The person's like, cool, what's the salary? And the recruiter's like, oh, the salary? Are you suggesting that you work for money? When someone responds that way, you know the salary is like $40,000 a year for 10 years of Java experience. Like, the media is owned by corporations who are built on the backs of like underpaying workers and like treating workers poorly. So like they can't support the work movement. So you see articles that are like, these Gen Zers are sure gonna regret job hopping and making a bunch of money because they didn't form work relationships, and that's the point. That's why we work, right? And like the newspaper owner is also like a corporate landlord, and he's got a big investment in making sure people go back to work. So it's like, I like, you'll just see articles like, people don't like working from home. They sure do miss the camaraderie from going to the office. And it's just like every single person in the world is like, no, I love working from home. I love eating breakfast with my family, actually. Love using my own bathroom. I'm seeing this work reform attitude kind of wiggle in the postdoc space, where postdocs are leaving their positions early. So like they're taking a 3-year contract and working like 8 months or maybe a year and a half. You see ads for postdocs sitting open for like 3 months, where in the past that person would have gotten like 100 applicants in 3 weeks, and now they got like 2. So a bunch of people are just sitting on their funding being like, I need to do this research, which I have received funding to do, but I can't hire a postdoc. Nobody wants to work anymore. So where have the postdocs gone? I want to call this the postdoc exodus of 2022. No one's calling it that. I'm going to call it that because people have been calling the work reform movement the Great Resignation, which I'm not a fan of. It makes it sound like people are just resigning. Like, I'm not going to work anymore. Here is my resignation. When really, they are quitting their jobs to take a better job. Like, they are resigning a job where their boss yells at them and micromanages them and underpays them for a job where none of that has happened. Like, they're not resigning. They're leaving for better employment. But if you read the news, it would seem like everyone's just quitting en masse. Like, what are we going to do with all the workers? So it is a postdoc exodus, because postdocs are not just not working. They're not just going home to live in their parents' basement. They're getting jobs. The more I started thinking about these open postdoc positions, I started to question why anyone would take a postdoc in the first place. So like, let's break it down. There are like 4 things you get from a job, right? You get compensated, you get job stability and safety in knowing that you have a job, you get job satisfaction, and you have opportunities that taking a position will afford you in the future. Let's break it down. The average postdoc in America makes $52,000 a year. And the range is 47-ish to like 63. This range is set in the lower limit by funding institutions. Like, you cannot write a grant to the NSF and say, I would like to pay my postdoc $113,000 a year. Like, they have a amount that is set. That is what you can pay them. And you cannot negotiate. You cannot ask for more money than that at a university postdoc. Let's just do some math on the upper end of that salary. So I will screen record here. Okay. So your salary, $63,000. Taxes are going to be I don't know, it depends on where you live. Let's say 12% for federal and 5% for state. So it's gonna be your salary times 0.17 and your take home pay per month. This divided by 12. Great. So let's do expenses. Okay, so first rent. Let's say you're taking a postdoc at MIT. Congratulations. In Boston, a 1-bedroom apartment's gonna be about $2,000. Great. So then you have utilities like your phone bill, your heat, your electric, your internet bill. So let's say $200. You're lucky in Boston because you don't need a car. Public transit's pretty good, so you won't have a car payment or car insurance because you'll have to sell your car. So you want to eat. Current prices, say $300 a month. Ooh, is that too low? Let's say $300 a month. Okay. Now, you're a postdoc, which means you're late 20s, early 30s. You're gonna want to start saving for a home. So let's say, oh gosh, 20% of your take-home pay per month. That sounds good. Oh. Great. What else? Average American has student loans. So let's say I think it's like $400 to like $1,000 a month. Wow, I can't spell. Let's go on the lower end. We'll say $500 a month. Again, you're in your late 20s, early 30s, so you might have children. Let's do daycare. Let's say you have 2 kids in Boston. That's gonna be $4,000 a month. Okay, what else? Again, you're lucky in Boston because a lot of universities require you to buy a parking pass to park on campus, even though that's where your job is. Can you imagine that? And it's like $1,000 a semester. Nurses do that too. Nurses have to pay to park at the hospital. That's insane. Okay, so let's just add this up as fun money. So like everything left over after your savings, after your rent, will be fun money. So we just take our monthly pay and we subtract the sum. Hey, this girl has Excel skills. Give her a job. No, just kidding. Great. Oh. So it looks like that postdoc, that fancy postdoc at MIT is gonna cost you $3,500 a month. I can tell you a secret though. In general, Ivy League schools pay less than less prestigious schools because they're banking on you taking the job because of the name. So don't count on the $63,000. But if you have this conversation with someone higher up in academia, they'll be like, don't have kids, like your early career, you have to wait till you get that magical unicorn permanent position to have kids. So let's just take that off. Let's say 0 daycare. Great. Now we have $400 a month. And those academics might say, well, if you have a partner, you have a 2-income household. Like it's fine. I don't understand that because a postdoc position is a 3-year contract, right? 3 years. I will have to move to Boston and somehow also convince my partner to come with me. Like imagine I have a wife and she's a librarian and she has her dream job in Los Angeles. And it's really hard to get on staff at a library. And once you are on staff, if you leave, you can't just come back. Am I supposed to ask her, like with complete sincerity, like, honey, I know you got a master's degree. I know you've worked really hard to get this dream job, but quit and move with me to Boston just for a part-time position. Like, no, we won't stay in Boston. It's not a permanent position. Just move with me to Boston. And you know what? In 2.5 years, I will have found another postdoc somewhere else. And I will once again ask you to quit your job again and follow me around. So no, you don't have 2 incomes. You have 2 incomes and 2 households. So you're both paying rent and you have your $486 a month to hopefully fly to LA once to see your lovely wife, right? The idea of the postdoc proposes that you, who has just finished graduate school, 6 years of graduate school, living in poverty to achieve this degree, and now move across the country for a contract position that lasts 3 years. You are supposed to uproot your life, uproot your family, to go live not in poverty, but now paycheck to paycheck. Is it a scam? There's more. It's not just these expenses of not being paid enough to live. But when you take a postdoc, you are moving. And moving is very expensive. Let's do some more math. Let's say we're moving to Boston. Great. So you need an apartment in Boston, so you need to pay your deposit, which is equal, you need to pay your deposit, which is going to be equal to 1 month's rent. You're going to have to pay first month and last month. And something super fun about Boston is that you have to pay a broker. So a broker fee is going to be 30% to 50%. Let's do 30%. It's going to be 30%, 1 month's rent. What does the broker do? I actually have no idea because I filled out all the paperwork. Who knows? Okay, great. What else? You have moving costs. Okay, so you have to pack up your stuff, put it in a car, and if you've convinced your lovely wife to quit her dream job and come with you, all her stuff as well, you put it in a truck, you drive it 3,000 miles across the country, let's say $3,000. Now, a good postdoc will pay or reimburse you for moving costs, but it's on the academic time scale. So just expect to be waiting 3 to 4 months while you send weekly emails to Libby, who has to push a button and she can't do it because it's the holidays and like she's on vacation for 4 days and like she only does reimbursement work on Tuesdays after 2 p.m. So like you'll have to keep in touch, but like surely you move in August, by February you'll get that money back. But look, like the best case scenario is that you have accepted this postdoc. You now need to spend $10,000 to move across the country. And that's like if your lease ended in LA. Like your lease ended at the perfect moment for you to get in a truck and move over. My partner had a postdoc in Chicago, Illinois. I had a postdoc in Boulder, Colorado, and we got positions in Boston, Massachusetts, 3 of the most expensive cities in America. We had 3 overlapping leases in the most expensive cities in America for 3 months. We were paying over $6,000 a month in rent. And that money is gone. That's just gone. Like, we didn't see those apartments. We weren't living in them. We just had leases. And I feel like any boomer watching this is going to be like, you didn't ask if you could end your lease early? You didn't just ask? Like, you can just let them know and they'll just, no. No, actually, no. Never not no. And they'll probably charge you a $700 cleaning fee, even though you hadn't been in the apartment in 4 months. Okay, so this is my question. You're a graduate student. I was a graduate student in Lexington, Kentucky. I made $23,000 a year for 5 years. From what $23,000 was I supposed to save 10 grand? 10 grand that I would feel comfortable just putting down as deposits and moving costs and not seeing again. Where was I supposed to get that money? Who has 10 grand to just move every 3 years? Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So to take a postdoc, you need to drop 10 grand to move to a location for a non-permanent position, but also you're going to be like losing money. Like, if you have a partner, if you have children, if you plan to save for a home, if you have to pay to take a position, if you are losing money by taking a position, isn't that just like an MLM? Oh, you just have to get a downline of researchers in the future and they will fund you. Like, but you have to spend money to make money, right? This is anecdotal, but I know a lot of physicists. I know a lot of physicists who went into industry and they all make above $100,000 a year. A lot of them make above $130,000 a year. Talk about money with your friends, by the way, it's important. when you take a postdoc for $60,000 a year, you're essentially throwing away the $40,000 you would have made if you had gone into industry. It's not just like, oh, I'm accepting a low paying wage, I'm going to be living paycheck to paycheck. It's like there's this opportunity cost. I'm not an economist. Is that what it would be? There's this loss of income. So you take your postdoc for 3 years, you've thrown away $150,000 because you weren't making the income that you should, the income that your peers with similar skills, similar research positions are making. And then after your 3-year postdoc, you go into industry. Well, now you are starting at that $100,000 while your peers who got a job 3 years ago have gotten raises, they've gotten bonuses, they've job hopped to get better jobs. So by taking a postdoc, you are forever limiting your income. I made a plot here in black is the money you've lost by taking a single postdoc. But maybe it's not all about money. I grew up in poverty and I am just devastatingly afraid of not being able to feed myself. So I focus a lot on the money, but a lot of people don't. Jobs can offer other things. So if a job doesn't pay well, but like it's a remarkably stable career that you know will feed and clothe you for the next 35 years of your working life, it might be worth it to take that pay cut. But a postdoc, it's not really a job. It's a contract position. Like when you accept a postdoc, it's a 3-year contract. Well, now they're 2+1. Have you guys seen 2+1? Like, has anyone been kicked out after 2 years? What is 2+1? The postdoc is a short-term employment contract that you have with a professor at some university, right? There is zero chance that you'll just get hired on to continue your postdoc. I mean, you could apply to receive funding and extend your time, but it is not in any way a permanent position. Why would you move across the country for a non-permanent position? Like, you're leaving your home, you're leaving like your support network, your friends and family. You try to convince your partner to come with you, but maybe they won't. If you have kids, you're uprooting them from their daycares and schools and going to a new place, all for 3 years and low pay. 3 years. Like, it's kind of insulting, right? Like, are you expected to do this every 3 years, just begging your partner as they get more and more exasperated to move to increasingly expensive areas of the country? You're not getting a raise, you're not making more money, you're just moving for a 3-year contract. It's not a job, it's a contract work. This is where job satisfaction comes in, because people have been taking postdocs since the postdoc was invented, because people kept leaving for industry and there wasn't enough research getting done. But like, go on. Like, I had a postdoc with a really cool professor. We did really cool research. By the way, I think professors would pay more if they could. Like, they would 100% write a grant that's like, we need to compensate my postdocs $100,000 per year. But they can't, right? Because the NSF, the DOE, the NIH would be like, absolutely not. Postdocs make $50,000 and you'll like it. So this has nothing to do with the professors. Like, the research is good. The research is exciting and interesting, and it makes going to work every day great, right? But as universities become more administrative and more customer service based, the job isn't just the research anymore. Postdocs exist in this weird liminal space between like student and professor. Like, the university you work for is perfectly happy to let you do world-class research under their name. They're excited for you to publish papers with their name on them. They are really happy to send you to conferences that you pay for under their name and present your work. But you're paid 50% what you would be in industry, and you're doing identical research. The university is excited to have me train students. The university is excited for me to teach courses, to teach graduate level courses, and yet I don't have a full-time job. I don't work for the university. I'm not employed by the university. I do not have a permanent position, and I share an office with 3 people. The university is so encouraging when I want to apply for and receive external funding, and they're happy to take a chunk of it. But I also receive emails from random administrators being like, why aren't you more involved in the community? You haven't come to snack postdoc time in weeks. And it's like, I have done the required training. I have trained successful students. I sit on the council, and yet you will not grant me the rank of master.
How can you be on the council and not be a master?
So we're getting into it. The last thing a job can do for you is offer opportunity. And I think this is where it is. This is why people take postdocs. There are 2 types of postdocs. The first are those that are avoiding making a decision. Like, you're in grad school for 5 years, you do your research, you're in academia, it's safe and it's comfortable, and you're poor, but like, you know what's happening. You graduate, do you want to go to the real world, or do you want to just take a nice little cozy postdoc position and do the same thing for a little bit more money? And you can deal with getting a real job in 3 years. I'm calling myself out here. I took the good postdoc. And then after a year, I got a fellowship. So the money went way up. So I was being paid way more. And the research was still really cool and it was worth it. But it never left my brain that this is not a job. This is not a position. In 2 years, you're gonna be out of money. You need a job. And anyone I've ever worked with can tell you, I am just constantly worrying about this. I'm constantly applying for jobs and doing interviews and getting offers and being like, do I want to work for a bank? I don't want to be a data scientist at a bank. You know, I applied for professor positions, probably like 12 a year for 3 years. And I think I did really well. Honestly, I got like 4 interviews a year and 1 offer. This is not, I'm going to be a professor video. I got the offer last year. And as soon as I got that email, I was like, I don't want this job. And I turned it down, and I was like, why am I wasting everyone's time applying for professor jobs when I don't want to be a professor? Why am I a postdoc? And that's the first group. We're avoiding the world, and a postdoc is an opportunity to just like you're the little baby bird on the ledge of getting a real job and being like, go for it, just do it, just go get a job. And to anyone who's graduating and thinks that they're this person, just get the job. Just take the money, take the stability. Research in industry is just as exciting, I promise you. The second type of postdoc is someone who intends to become a professor. So they are doing the academic track, like grad school, postdoc, tenure track position. So a postdoc is enticing in that it lets you work towards your goal of dream job. Like, you are still in academia, you're still doing research, you're moving towards this goal of dream job. As someone who started their postdoc in 2019, the job of professor has changed a lot in the past 3 years. Like the fall of 2019, I start my postdoc. The spring of 2020, global pandemic. The response to global pandemic was like, oh fuck, send the students home. We can't have students dying on campus. Cut the pay of the professors. Like, that was step 2. Like, professors don't make that much money. They don't get really good yearly raises to match inflation. Like, they get a big raise when they get tenure. They get a raise if they do like department head stuff. But like, a pay for professors and not like basketball coach, like what? And then I taught a class in the summer of 2020. They just kept dicking us around, being like, oh, it's definitely gonna be in person. It's gonna be in person. It's gonna be in person. 3 days before, I got an email that was like totally online. So like redo everything. And so like, okay, class is online. My big conspiracy theory was that the university was going to steal all the lectures, right? Like, you're giving a lecture online, your assignments are online. The university owns all of that stuff. My conspiracy theory was like, they're gonna take all the classes, fire all the professors, hire a bunch of TAs, and like university is just going to be online forever. Like 10 years from now, people will be taking physics from a dead man who gave a lecture 15 years ago, right? But that's not what happened, because apparently people really like learning in person. So now, in the event of pandemic 2, or this pandemic, which is still going on, the university is just like, teach in person. And you're like, what? I don't want to die. And it's just like, well, if you want to be a professor, you want to care about your students, you got to sacrifice yourself. I got to say, what killed it for me is this tweet. I have not stopped thinking about this since this happened. Like, this man is begging, like, for the safety of my wife, for the safety of my unborn child. I cannot require you to wear a mask. Please, for me, wear a mask. And they don't. Like, you can't catch me being a professor after 2020. And it's not just that. Like, depending on where your university is located, you can be required to teach in person. And if you ask your students to wear a mask, it's like a felony. Like, depending on where your university is located, if you accidentally get pregnant and have an ectopic pregnancy, you just get forced to die. Do you want to be a professor there? The job that I got and turned down 2 years ago was in one of these states. So super glad I don't live there right now. Like, states are requiring professors to state their political leanings before class. Like, you can be charged with a felony for teaching whatever they decide CRT is at whatever time. I don't know if physics would fall into that, but surely at some point. States like Georgia and Texas want to get rid of tenure. And it's not just political stuff either. Like I mentioned, universities have this administrative bloat. Like, there's more people working at universities than ever before. And yet professors seem to be doing a lot more stuff than they did in the past. I was teaching a class, a graduate class, even though I'm just in training, it's fine. I was teaching a class, and like in the registrar, like it said, like the location was incorrect and the description was incorrect. So I'm like, oh, the students won't sign up for this, it's incorrect, I'll send an email. I email the department secretary, and I'm like, great, the registrar has this course as incorrect. And she responds like, great, you just need to email the registrar. So I email the registrar. I'm like, hey, the course is incorrect in the course catalog. Please correct it. Here's what it should say. And I got an email back that was like, great, you can fix this yourself. So here is a PDF with 47 pages of print screened PowerPoint on how I can log onto this software I've never used and make the correction. And it's like, bro, you work at the registrar. If you're not fixing the course catalog, which you wrote and you made the mistake in, why is that me? Why do I have to do that? Like, you made the mistake, you know the software, it would take you 4 seconds to fix this. What is your job? Is your job just emailing out relevant PDFs to make everyone else do your work? And it's like that with absolutely everything. So the postdoc is like a gamble. It's like, I'm either postponing the real world or I hope to get a faculty position at some point. That's what it is. I'm sure that's what it's always been, but with like increasing costs, with increasing inflation, it's just making less and less sense to make that gamble. So here are my predictions. I think in future, fewer and fewer people will take postdocs. And because the way the postdoc is set up now to cater toward like single white men from generational wealth who can afford to move anywhere in America for 2 decades while they wait in line for faculty positions, you're gonna see more people getting hired right out of grad school, which I think is great. Like, abolish the postdoc, hire those superstar people right from grad school. If they need training, just give that to them once they're hired. I think you will see postdocs sitting open for years. Like, there's always going to be a population of people who are willing to take a postdoc at Harvard because it's Harvard, even if that means low pay, because the prestige of Harvard is compensation, in their opinion. But that's not the case for like Manhattan, Kansas. Is there a university in Manhattan, Kansas? Oh, it's Kansas State. Kansas State's in Manhattan, Kansas. I bet they have a great astronomy department, and I bet they don't get a lot of postdocs in the future. Like, and it's not because Kansas State is anything. It's just because if you are choosing between making a low wage and moving to a location, or staying with your family and making much more money for a permanent position, you're not going to do that in Kansas. You're not going to move for a 3-year contract position to be paid just above a living wage in Kansas. Nothing against Kansas. I'm sure it's fine, flat but fine. So you will see people getting hired right out of grad school. You're going to see people taking prestige postdocs, but not much else, which has implications for what tenure looks like at these Midwestern universities. Like, no one's moving to Florida for a postdoc because you'd have to be in Florida. So do the Florida professors do the research? They don't have time to do the research. They're doing the registrar's job. Maybe they hire extra grad students. Maybe they could start paying grad students more to get really good people down there. But I just don't see people doing postdocs at those locations. This is gonna change what tenure looks like at certain places. Like, you either have to change the research requirements or take something off those professors' plates so they can do the research. Or maybe just hire more professors. Hire people right out of grad school. I don't think the faculty job market will ever see this exodus that we see in postdocs, because there is always going to be a certain subset of PhDs who are like professor or bust. Even if that means they make low pay, even if it means they won't get tenure because they can't ever get postdocs because like they're in Utah. Like, right now a professor position gets like 400 applications. So like, you decrease the pay, you decrease the prestige, you decrease like what the job actually entails satisfaction wise, you're still gonna get like 100 applicants, right? So I think this will only affect the postdoc market. Like, it's a postdoc exodus. They're just leaving for industry. They're just getting jobs. And I kind of think it's great. Like, it's gonna be good for academia overall. Like, the market is oversaturated, so now people will leave. And that's great. I think Inside Higher Ed would report this as like, anti-work has hit academia, and it's just like, we're just getting jobs for more money with better, more interesting research, locations close to our families. It seems great all around. Something that's been bothering me about this is that fact that professors rely on the research of postdocs and graduate students who are underpaid to make their commitments, to get the research that they promised different funding institutions they would get done. In order to get tenure, they rely on underpaid and therefore exploited researchers, right? It's so weird. Like, do they feel bad about it? Do they feel bad? Like, if I wanted to treat myself and hire a housekeeper and the company was like, so they get paid $6 an hour and you cannot tip them, like our industry regulations say they get $6 an hour and no more, I would just clean my own house. Like, I'm not going to contribute to the exploitation of workers. But the whole idea of a professor completing research requires postdocs. Like, I'm such a pathetic piece of shit. Like, if I have a tomato plant, if I pick a tomato and I set it on the counter and I forget to eat it and it rots, I feel like sad about it. Like, I'm like, I wasted this tomato. I should have eaten it. Like, oh my God. This movie, the Morbius movie came out, right? It was a piece of garbage. No one liked it because no one likes Jared Leto. Stop casting him. He's a pedophile. He's gross. No one wants to watch him for a 2.5-hour movie. Like, that's your issue, Sony. Don't do Jared Leto, gross. But there were these kids memeing about it on the internet. And so Sony was like, oh, people like this. They're talking about it. And they re-released the movie and it bombed again, which is just objectively hilarious. But I saw this headline and I almost started crying because I was just imagining, like the makeup artist texting like the assistant director, and they're just like, our movie, it's coming back out. Like, people like it. And like, they must have been like excited that this piece of shit that they made was like gaining traction, and then it just bombed again. Like, it's sad. It's a sad story. So I don't think I could hire a graduate student and be like, live in poverty for 6 years and write my papers, right? Are you a little sad about it? Like, does it bother you? Like, I wonder, like, there's that thing, like, most professors grew up with professor parents. So, like, most professors probably never lived in poverty. And when I say they didn't live in poverty, like, I mean they were, like, middle class. Like, most professors in grad school probably could have been like, hey, Mom, can I borrow $300? And the mom would have been like, yes, right? But that's not the experience of everyone. I was literally living off my $23,000 as a grad student. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not their fault that the system is the way it is. But you're contributing to it by hiring the people. And like, we're all adults. Like, we join graduate school. We understand how much money we'll be making, right? I don't know. Leave a comment below. Is there an ethical consumption of graduate student and postdoc researchers under capitalism?